On a frozen night, a reckless decision, and a poor man just did what no one dared to imagine. Ethan Brooks wasn't a hero. He was just a night janitor trying to raise his 6-year-old daughter after his wife walked out. But tonight, when he found a young woman collapsed outside the executive elevators, burning with fever, panicking, begging him not to call security, he made a choice that could destroy everything. He took her home. And that decision would pull him into a world he didn't belong to, where power crushes kindness, where truth gets twisted into crime, and where a man with nothing to lose will have to face those who control it all. Follow my story to the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now, let's step into that fateful night where everything started to change. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects, casting their sterile glow across the empty 20th floor of Meridian Tower. Ethan Brooks pushed his cleaning cart down the marble hallway, the wheels squeaking in rhythm with his tired steps. His blue janitor's uniform hung loose on his frame. He'd lost weight over the past year, though he couldn't say exactly when. Didn't matter. Food was just fuel now, something to keep him upright long enough to finish his shift, get home to Lily, sleep 3 hours, then do it all again. 2:30 in the morning. The building was supposed to be empty except for him and maybe old Carl down in the lobby, half asleep behind his desk. Ethan preferred it this way. The silence, the solitude. No executives rushing past like he was furniture. No pity in anyone's eyes when they noticed his worn shoes or the phone he'd been using for 4 years because a new one wasn't in the budget. He'd been working at Meridian for 8 months now. Third job he'd had since Jennifer left, and the only one with hours that let him be home when Lily woke up. Mrs. Chen from 3B watched her at night for $40 a week. Money Ethan could barely afford but had no choice about. Single father, no family nearby, no safety net, just him and a 6-year-old who still asked, sometimes when mommy was coming back. Ethan sprayed disinfectant on the glass conference room door, wiped it down in smooth circular motions. Through the windows, the city sprawled below, lights glittering like broken promises. He used to have an office view once, back when he worked in marketing at a firm that went under during the recession. That was before Lily, before the struggle, before he learned that life doesn't care about your plans. He moved toward the executive wing, where the real money lived. Corner offices with mahogany furniture and original art on the walls. These people didn't even empty their own trash cans. They left half-eaten catered meals sitting out, $100 bottles of wine barely touched. Ethan had stopped feeling angry about it months ago. Anger took energy he didn't have. The executive elevators stood at the end of the hall, reserved for the top-floor executives and VIP visitors. Ethan rarely cleaned that area. It had its own dedicated service, but tonight he'd been asked to cover because Marcus called in sick. Double shift meant double pay, and Lily needed new shoes. The ones she had were getting too small, pinching her toes, but she never complained. 6 years old and already learning not to ask for things. As Ethan approached the elevators, he noticed something odd. The hallway lights near the elevator bank were dimmer than usual, and there was a shape on the floor that didn't belong. His first thought was that someone had left a coat. People forgot things all the time, umbrellas, briefcases, sometimes laptops that probably cost more than his monthly rent. But as he got closer, his chest tightened. Not a coat, a person. A woman, collapsed against the wall beside the elevator. Her body curled in on itself like she was trying to disappear. "Hey," Ethan said, his voice cracking the silence. "Hey, you okay?" No response. He abandoned his cart and moved quickly, his worn sneakers silent on the polished floor. As he knelt down, he got his first real look at her. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair that fell across her face. She wore an expensive-looking coat, wool, charcoal gray, the kind with a designer label inside. Her clothes underneath were equally refined. Black slacks, a cream blouse, delicate gold jewelry at her wrists and neck. Everything about her screamed money and status. Everything except the way she was shaking. "Miss?" Ethan reached out carefully, touched her shoulder. "Can you hear me?" She flinched violently, her head snapping up. Her eyes were unfocused, glassy with fever. Sweat beaded on her pale forehead despite the building's relentless air conditioning. "Don't!" Her voice came out hoarse, desperate. "Don't call anyone." "You need help," Ethan said. "Let me get security. They can—" "No!" She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength, her fingers cold and trembling. No security. No, please. They can't. I can't. Her words dissolved into a cough that shook her whole body. Ethan could feel the heat radiating off her skin even through her coat. This wasn't just feeling under the weather. This was serious. You're burning up, he said. You need a doctor. No hospitals. She was trying to focus on his face, struggling to keep her eyes open. They'll find me. Please, I just need... She didn't finish. Her grip on his wrist loosened and her eyes rolled back slightly. Ethan's mind raced. This was bad. This was somebody else's problem. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to call security, let them handle it, go back to his cart and finish his shift. He had Lily to think about. He couldn't afford to get involved in whatever this was. But even as those thoughts formed, he was already pulling out his phone, checking her pulse, rapid and thready. Her breathing was shallow, and the way she'd panicked at the mention of security, the fear in her eyes, that wasn't just fever talking. Okay, he heard himself say. Okay, just stay with me. She was too out of it to respond, her head lolling against the wall. Ethan looked around the empty hallway. No cameras in this particular section. He knew because he'd asked about it once, worried about being blamed if something went missing. The executive floor valued privacy over surveillance. He was really considering this. He was actually thinking about, "This is stupid," he muttered to himself. "This is the stupidest thing you've ever thought about doing." But he was already helping her to her feet, or trying to. She couldn't support her own weight, her legs buckling. She was taller than he'd expected, but thin, fragile feeling. Ethan wasn't a big man, but he managed to get her arm around his shoulders, his own arm supporting her waist. "Come on," he said quietly. "Can you walk? Just a little bit?" She made a sound that might have been agreement, her feet making clumsy attempts at steps. They moved slowly, painfully, away from the elevators. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that he was making a massive mistake, that he should turn around right now. But there was something in the way she'd looked at him, that fear, that desperation. He'd seen it before, in his own eyes, in the bathroom mirror after Jennifer left, when the bills piled up and Lily cried herself to sleep asking for her mother. He knew what it felt like to need help and have nowhere to turn. The service elevator was around the corner, away from the main hallways. Ethan half-carried, half-dragged the young woman toward it, listening for footsteps, voices, anything that would mean they'd been spotted. The building stayed silent except for the ever-present hum of the HVAC system. They reached the elevator. Ethan leaned the woman against the wall while he fumbled for his key card. Janitors had access to service areas, and pressed the call button. The wait felt eternal. The woman was mumbling something he couldn't make out, her eyes closed. The elevator dinged softly. Doors slid open. Empty. Thank God. Ethan got her inside and pressed the button for the basement parking level. As the doors closed, sealing them in, the full weight of what he was doing hit him. He was removing someone from the building. Someone who was clearly sick, clearly not supposed to be here at this hour. Someone who, based on her clothes and the executive floor location, was probably important, connected. Someone whose disappearance people would notice. "What's your name?" he asked, but she didn't answer. Her head rested against his shoulder, her breathing labored. The elevator descended. Ethan watched the numbers drop, each floor bringing him closer to a point of no return. He could still take her back upstairs. He could still call for help. He could still... The doors opened to the parking garage. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of concrete and motor oil. Ethan's 10-year-old Honda Civic sat in the far corner where he always parked it, as far from the nice cars as possible. He moved quickly now, decision made whether he liked it or not. The woman was nearly dead weight against him, her feet dragging. His back ached from the awkward position, but he didn't stop, didn't slow down until they reached his car. Getting her into the passenger seat was harder than he'd anticipated. She couldn't help at all, her body limp and uncooperative. Ethan finally managed it, adjusted the seat back so she was almost lying down, and clicked the seatbelt into place. Her head lolled to the side. He stood there for a moment, hands on the car's roof, breathing hard. The parking garage's security camera was pointed at the executive spaces, not his corner. Another small mercy. Or maybe just enough rope to hang himself with. Ethan climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. The Civic coughed to life, loud in the concrete space. He pulled out slowly, taking the exit ramp that led to the street. No security gate at this hour. Budget cuts meant the gate only operated during business hours. The city streets were nearly empty, just a few cars and the occasional taxi. Ethan drove carefully, under the speed limit, signaling every turn. The last thing he needed was to get pulled over with an unconscious woman in his passenger seat. "Where do you live?" he asked her, knowing she couldn't answer. "Where can I take you?" Nothing. Just her ragged breathing and the occasional whimper. He couldn't take her to a hospital. She'd made that clear, and besides, what would he even say? How would he explain this? And if she was running from something, from someone, bringing her to a hospital might put her in more danger. But he couldn't just drive around all night either. Without fully deciding to, Ethan found himself heading toward his apartment. His small, run-down, barely holding together apartment where Lily was sleeping, where Mrs. Chen was probably dozing on the couch. This was insane. This was beyond insane. This was... The woman made a sound, something between a sob and a breath, and Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. 20 minutes later, he pulled into the cracked parking lot of Riverside Apartments. The building was a relic from the 70s, 4 stories of faded brick and rusting balconies. Ethan's place was on the second floor, Unit 2C. He'd lived there for 3 years, ever since the divorce, ever since his old life fell apart. He killed the engine and sat for a moment, staring at the steering wheel. Last chance. Last chance to turn around, take her to a hospital, call someone, do literally anything else. Instead, he got out and walked around to the passenger side. Getting her out of the car and up the stairs was a nightmare. She'd gotten worse during the drive, her fever spiking, her body going completely limp. Ethan had to carry her, his arms burning with the effort. She was light, but it was still a struggle, and by the time he reached his apartment door, he was sweating and out of breath. The door was unlocked. Mrs. Chen never locked it from inside. Ethan nudged it open with his shoulder and stepped into the small living room. Mrs. Chen was indeed asleep on the couch, the TV playing some late-night infomercial on mute. She stirred as Ethan entered, her eyes opening slowly, then going wide when she saw what he was carrying. "Mr. Brooks!" She stood up quickly, her book falling to the floor. "What? Who is—" "I found her at work," Ethan said quietly, moving past her toward the hallway. "She's sick. She needs help." "Hospital," Mrs. Chen said immediately. "You need to take her to hospital." "Can't. She asked me not to." Ethan was already heading toward his bedroom, the only other room besides Lily's tiny bedroom and the bathroom. "Can you stay a bit longer? I need to figure this out." Mrs. Chen followed him, wringing her hands. "Mr. Brooks, this is not good. This is very not good. You don't know this person. You don't know what trouble—" "I know," Ethan said. He laid the woman down on his bed, the sheets he'd washed just yesterday because the laundromat was finally open when he had quarters. "I know, Mrs. Chen, but I couldn't just leave her there." The older woman looked at the young woman on the bed, then at Ethan, her face creased with worry. "You have good heart," she said finally. "But good heart can bring bad trouble." "Story of my life," Ethan muttered. He was already pulling off the woman's coat, checking her pockets. No phone, no wallet, no ID, just a crumpled tissue and a keychain with no keys, just a small silver charm shaped like a bird. Mrs. Chen sighed deeply. "I will make tea," she announced. "Tea helps everything. Maybe not this, but I will make anyway." She shuffled toward the kitchen, muttering in Cantonese. Ethan appreciated her staying, even if she thought he was crazy, which he probably was. The woman's breathing was getting worse, a rattling quality that scared him. Her skin had gone from flushed to pale, and she was shivering despite the fever. Ethan grabbed the extra blanket from the closet and spread it over her, then went to the bathroom for a cold washcloth. As he pressed the cloth to her forehead, her eyes fluttered open. For a moment they focused on him, really seeing him. "You helped me," she whispered. "Why?" Ethan didn't have a good answer. "Seemed like you needed it." "You don't know what you've done." Her eyes were closing again. "You don't know." "Then tell me," Ethan said. "Tell me who you are. Tell me who I should call." But she was already gone again, sinking back into fever sleep. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of tea. "Drink," she commanded, handing one to Ethan. "You look like Ghost." He took it gratefully, the warmth spreading through his cold hands. They stood there together, watching the young woman breathe. "What you gonna do?" Mrs. Chen asked. "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "Wait until morning, see if she gets better, see if she can tell me where she belongs. And if someone comes looking, then I guess we'll deal with that too." Mrs. Chen shook her head slowly. "I should go, but I come back in morning, yes? Bring soup. Soup always helps. You don't have to—" "I come back," she said firmly. "You cannot do this alone. And Lily will wake up soon. She will have questions." Lily. Ethan's stomach dropped. In all the chaos, he'd somehow managed to half forget about his daughter sleeping in the next room. What was he going to tell her? How was he going to explain this? After Mrs. Chen left, Ethan sat in the chair beside his bed, watching the woman sleep. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. His shift at Meridian was supposed to end at 6. It was almost 4 now. He should call in, tell them he was sick, but that would mean losing the pay for tonight. Losing money he desperately needed. But he couldn't leave. Not now. Not with this woman in his bed, burning with fever, running from something she was too scared to name. He pulled out his phone and texted his supervisor. "Family emergency. Can't finish shift. Sorry." The response came quickly. "This is your second call out this month, Brooks. One more and we'll have to review your position." Ethan stared at the message. Second call out. The first had been when Lily got sick and he couldn't find anyone to watch her. He'd worked at Meridian for 8 months and called out twice, but in their world, that was too much. He was replaceable. Everyone was replaceable. He put the phone away and looked at the woman again. She'd turned slightly in her sleep, her face pressed into his pillow. In the dim light from the hallway, she looked younger, more vulnerable. There was a small scar above her left eyebrow, barely visible. A silver ring on her right hand with some kind of engraving he couldn't make out. Who was she? Why had she been on that executive floor at 2 in the morning? What was she running from? And why had she been so terrified of security? Ethan must have dozed off because the next thing he knew, dawn light was seeping through the thin curtains and someone small was shaking his arm. "Daddy?" He jerked awake, nearly falling out of the chair. Lily stood beside him in her pajamas, the ones with the unicorns that she'd picked out at the thrift store. Her dark hair was a mess, sticking up in every direction. She was staring past him at the bed. "Who's that?" she asked. Ethan's mind scrambled. Her name is—" He realized he didn't know. "She's sick, baby. I found her and she needed help, so I brought her here." Lily tilted her head, studying the sleeping woman with the solemn curiosity of a 6-year-old. "Is she going to be okay?" "I hope so." "Does she need breakfast?" "You always say breakfast helps when I don't feel good." Despite everything, Ethan felt a smile tug at his lips. "That's true, but I think she needs to sleep right now." "Oh." Lily climbed into his lap, something she still did even though she was getting too big for it. "Mrs. Chen said you came home early. Did something bad happen?" "No, sweetie, I needed to help someone." Lily nodded like this made perfect sense. "Like when you helped Mr. Patterson fix his car." "Kind of like that." They sat together quietly, Lily warm and solid against his chest, the woman sleeping fitfully in the bed. The apartment around them was shabby and small, peeling paint, a crack in the ceiling that Ethan kept meaning to report, furniture from the curb or the Salvation Army. But it was clean. It was safe. It was home. Whatever happened next, Ethan thought, at least he'd done the right thing. At least he'd tried. The woman stirred, making a small sound. Lily perked up. "She's waking up," she whispered. But the woman didn't wake. She just turned again, the blanket slipping down. Ethan pulled it back up, adjusting it around her shoulders. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "You're a good person," Lily said simply. "Mommy used to say so." Ethan's throat tightened. Jennifer used to say a lot of things. Most of them stopped being true before she left. "Come on," he said, standing up with Lily in his arms. "Let's get you some cereal. We need to let her rest." He carried his daughter to the kitchen, set her down at the small table, poured her a bowl of generic cornflakes. The milk was close to expiring, but still good. Lily ate slowly, swinging her legs, occasionally glancing toward the hallway, where the bedroom door stood half open. Ethan made coffee with grounds he'd been stretching for 3 days. As it brewed, he checked his phone. No new messages from work, no missed calls. The world outside his apartment continued as normal, unaware that everything in his small corner of it had shifted. He was standing at the counter, coffee cup in hand, when he heard it. A crash from the bedroom, the sound of something falling. Ethan ran. The woman was on the floor beside the bed, tangled in the blanket, trying to stand. Her eyes were wild, unfocused. Where? She looked around frantically. Where am I? How did I? It's okay, Ethan said, hands up, non-threatening. You're safe. You're in my apartment. I found you last night. You were sick. She stared at him like he was speaking another language. Then her eyes went to the doorway, where Lily had appeared, still holding her cereal spoon. There's a child, the woman said faintly. My daughter, Ethan explained. Listen, you need to get back in bed. You're still running a fever. I need to leave. She tried to stand using the bed for support, but her legs wouldn't hold her. She went down hard, catching herself on her hands. I need to... They'll be looking. I can't... Who's looking? Ethan asked, moving closer but not too close. Who are you running from? She looked up at him, and for the first time he saw it clearly. The terror beneath the fever, the desperation that went deeper than physical illness. Everyone, she whispered. Then she passed out again, collapsing onto the floor in a heap. Ethan caught her before her head hit the nightstand, easing her down gently. Her skin was still burning up, maybe worse than before. This wasn't getting better on its own. Lily, he called out. Go to your room for a minute, okay, baby? Is the lady okay? She will be. Just go play with your toys. I'll come check on you in a bit. Lily hesitated, then nodded and disappeared. Ethan heard her bedroom door close. He managed to get the woman back onto the bed, checked her pulse again. Still rapid, still thready. He needed to get her fever down or she was going to get worse. Much worse. For the next hour, Ethan did what he could. Cold compresses. Opened the window to let in cool air even though it was freezing outside. Found the bottle of ibuprofen left over from when Lily had the flu. Managed to get 2 pills down the woman's throat with sips of water. She was semi-conscious through it all, mumbling words he couldn't understand. By 9 o'clock, the fever finally broke. The woman's breathing eased, her color improving from deathly pale to just pale. She fell into what looked like actual sleep rather than fever delirium. Ethan collapsed in the chair again, exhausted. He hadn't slept. He was supposed to be sleeping right now, actually. His usual routine was to get home at 7, sleep until 1, then spend the afternoon and evening with Lily before Mrs. Chen came at 10 and he left for work. That routine was shattered now. Everything was different. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk about your employment status. Please call the office at your earliest convenience. Meridian. He'd been expecting this. Ethan put the phone face down on the nightstand. Whatever they had to say could wait. Everything could wait. He must have fallen asleep again because the next thing he knew, someone was touching his hand. Gentle. Tentative. Ethan's eyes opened. The woman was awake, truly awake this time, and sitting up slightly in the bed. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair matted, but her eyes were clear. You brought me here, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Why? You needed help. She studied him for a long moment. You don't know who I am. No. Good, she said quietly. That's better. They sat in silence. From Lily's room came the sound of her playing, talking to her stuffed animals in that serious way kids had. I should go, the woman said, but she didn't move. I'm putting you in danger just by being here. Danger from what? She shook her head. You're better off not knowing. Little late for that, Ethan pointed out. I already brought you home, already called out of work for you, so you might as well tell me what I've gotten myself into. The woman looked at him again, really looked, like she was seeing him for the first time. You called out of work? Yeah. You could lose your job. Maybe. Why would you do that? Why would you risk anything for a complete stranger? Ethan didn't have a good answer for that either. Because you asked me not to call security, he said finally. Because you were scared, and I've been scared before. I know what it feels like to have nowhere to go. Something shifted in her expression. The walls didn't come down completely, but they cracked, just a little. My name is Claire, she said softly, and you have no idea what you've done. Claire's words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning Ethan didn't yet understand. He leaned back in the chair, studying her face, the exhaustion written in every line, the fear she was trying to hide behind a mask of composure that kept slipping. So tell me, he said, what did I do? She looked away, toward the window where morning light filtered through the cheap blinds. You saved someone you shouldn't have saved. That's not really an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. Claire pushed herself up further against the headboard, wincing. How long have I been here? About 7 hours. You were burning up most of that time. 7 hours. She closed her eyes. They'll have noticed by now. They'll be looking. Who's they? But before Claire could answer, Lily's voice called from the other room. Daddy, I'm hungry. Ethan stood. I need to make my daughter breakfast. You should rest. We can talk after. No. Claire grabbed his wrist, her grip weak but insistent. You need to listen to me. When they come, and they will come, you tell them the truth. You found me. You brought me here. You didn't know who I was. You tell them I was delirious, that I asked for help. You were just being kind. Why do I feel like that's not going to matter? Because it won't. She let go of his wrist. But it's all we have. Ethan left her there and went to the kitchen where Lily sat at the table, drawing on the back of an envelope with a crayon that was more stub than stick. She looked up when he entered. Is Claire awake? You talked to her? She told me her name when you were sleeping. She's nice. She said I have pretty hair. Ethan pulled eggs from the refrigerator, cracked 2 into a pan that had seen better days. The oil sizzled and spat. Did she say anything else? She asked if you were always this kind. Lily went back to her drawing. I said yes. I said you help everybody. I don't help everybody, baby. You helped Mr. Patterson and Mrs. Chen when her sink broke, and that man at the grocery store who dropped all his bags. Ethan flipped the eggs, watching the edges curl and brown. That's different. How? He didn't have an answer for that. The eggs slid onto a plate and he set them in front of Lily, along with the last piece of bread, toasted. She ate without complaint, never mentioning that there wasn't enough or that she'd had eggs for dinner last night too. His phone rang. Not a number he recognized. Ethan stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Mr. Brooks? A woman's voice, professional and cold. This is Amanda Chen from Meridian Tower Security. We need to ask you some questions about last night. Ethan's heart kicked against his ribs. Questions about what? About your shift. About whether you saw anything unusual. Can you come in this afternoon? I'm not scheduled until tonight. This is important, Mr. Brooks. We have some concerns about security footage from the executive floor. The executive floor, where there were no cameras, where he'd found Claire. What kind of concerns? He asked. We'd prefer to discuss this in person. 2 o'clock? It wasn't really a question. Ethan looked at Lily, then toward the bedroom where Claire was. I'll be there. The line went dead. Who was that? Lily asked around a mouthful of egg. Work, baby. I need to go in for a little while this afternoon. Can I come? Not this time. Mrs. Chen will watch you. Lily's face fell, but she nodded, the way she always did when things didn't go her way. Too used to disappointment, Ethan thought. Too used to making do. When he returned to the bedroom, Claire was attempting to stand again. She'd made it to her feet this time, but was leaning heavily against the wall. Security from my building just called, Ethan said. They want to talk to me about last night. Claire's face went pale. What did you tell them? That I'd come in at 2. You can't go. I don't have a choice. If I don't show up, that looks worse. They'll ask you where I am. And I'll tell them the truth, that I don't know who you are, that I found someone sick and brought them home. Ethan crossed his arms. Unless you want to tell me who you really are, give me something to work with here. Claire was quiet for a long moment, her hand pressed against the wall for balance. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. My father owns Meridian Tower. Ethan felt the floor tilt slightly beneath him. What? He owns it, along with about 40 other properties in the city. He has a lot of influence, a lot of power. So you're rich. I'm his daughter. The distinction seemed important to her. Which means I'm property too, in a way. Something to be managed, controlled. Is that what you were running from? Your father? I was running from the life he's planned for me, the marriage he's arranged, the cage he's built with money and expectations. Claire finally looked at him directly. I know how that sounds, poor little rich girl. You probably think I'm ridiculous. I think you were sick and scared and alone. Ethan moved to the window, looked out at the parking lot below. I think whatever you're running from was bad enough that you'd rather collapse on a cold floor than ask for help. His name is Richard Ashford, Claire said. My father. And when he finds out what you did, he's going to make your life very difficult. Ethan had heard the name before, seen it in the news, on buildings, in the business section of newspapers he sometimes found left on the train. Richard Ashford, real estate magnate, billionaire, the kind of powerful that made regular rules not apply. Great, Ethan said. That's just great. A knock at the door made them both freeze. Daddy? Lily called. Someone's here. Ethan and Claire stared at each other. It was too soon for security, too soon for anyone, unless they'd already been looking, unless they'd already known where to find her. Stay here, Ethan said. Don't come out. He closed the bedroom door and went to the front of the apartment. Through the peephole, he could see Mrs. Chen carrying a pot that was probably the soup she'd promised. Relief flooded through him. He opened the door. Good morning, Mrs. Chen said, bustling past him. I bring chicken soup. Very good for sick people. My mother's recipe. Mrs. Chen, you didn't have to. Of course I have to. You think I let you handle this alone? She set the pot on the stove, turned on the burner. How is she? Awake, talking. Fever's down. Good. This is good. Mrs. Chen ladled soup into a bowl. You take this to her. Make sure she eats. Soup has healing power. Ethan took the bowl, steam rising from the golden broth. Bits of chicken and vegetables floated among the noodles. It smelled like comfort, like care. Thank you, he said. Really? Mrs. Chen waved him off. I watch Lily now. You take care of business with sick girl. Then you tell me truth about what is happening, yes? Yes. When he returned to the bedroom, Claire was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking steadier. She eyed the soup suspiciously. Mrs. Chen made it, Ethan explained. She's good people. You told her about me? She was here when I brought you in. Kind of hard to hide. Claire accepted the bowl, holding it but not eating. How many people know I'm here? Just Mrs. Chen. And Lily, but she's 6. 6-year-olds talk. Not about things that matter. I've taught her better than that. Ethan sat in the chair again. Look, we need a plan. I have to go to Meridian at 2. What do you want me to do? Claire finally took a spoonful of soup, closed her eyes as she tasted it. This is really good. Mrs. Chen doesn't mess around with soup. When you go, you stick to the story. You don't know me. You saw someone who needed help. That's it. And if they don't believe me, then you let them arrest you if they have to. Don't resist. Don't fight. My father will have lawyers there within the hour, and they'll get you out. Ethan laughed, bitter. Your father's going to send lawyers for me? He'll want to contain this, control the narrative. That means making sure you don't talk to anyone who might make this public. Claire ate more soup, her hand steadier now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. You didn't drag me anywhere. I made a choice. A stupid choice. Maybe, but it was mine. They sat in silence while Claire finished the soup. Outside the bedroom, Ethan could hear Lily and Mrs. Chen talking, Lily's laughter bright against the older woman's lower tones. Normal sounds, safe sounds, everything that was about to disappear. At 1:30, Ethan changed into Ashia's least wrinkled shirt and the dress pants he kept for Lily's school events. Claire watched from the bed, still weak but improving by the hour. You look nervous, she observed. I am nervous. I'm about to lie to security professionals about harboring the daughter of a billionaire. You're not harboring me. I'm a guest. Pretty sure that's not how they'll see it. Claire stood, slower this time, but under her own power. She crossed to him, close enough that he could smell the fever sweat still clinging to her clothes. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for what you did. I know it doesn't help, but thank you." Ethan nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Then he left before he could change his mind about going at all. The bus ride to Meridian Tower took 40 minutes. Ethan spent it staring out the window, watching the city slide past. Neighborhoods got nicer as he traveled, buildings taller, people better dressed. By the time the tower came into view, all glass and steel and money, he felt like he was visiting another planet. Security met him in the lobby, 2 men in suits, 1 woman. The woman was the one who'd called Amanda Chen. No relation to his Mrs. Chen, probably. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "thank you for coming. Please follow us." They led him to a conference room on the 3rd floor. Generic corporate art on the walls, a table that could seat 12, windows overlooking the street. They asked him to sit. They didn't sit themselves. "We'll get right to it," Amanda said. "Last night, between 2 and 3 a.m., were you working on the executive floor?" "Yes." "Did you see anyone who shouldn't have been there?" Here it was, the moment everything either held together or fell apart. "I saw a woman," Ethan said, "near the executive elevators. She looked sick." "What did you do?" "I asked if she needed help. She said no. She said not to call security." "And did you call security?" "No." "Why not?" Ethan met Amanda's eyes. "Because she asked me not to. She seemed scared." "So you just left her there?" "I offered to help. She refused. When I came back through that area later, she was gone." The lie sat bitter on his tongue. Amanda studied him, her expression unreadable. One of the men, shorter, balding, pulled out a tablet and showed Ethan a photo. It was Claire. Professional headshot, hairstyled, wearing clothes that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. "Is this the woman you saw?" Ethan looked at the photo, at Claire's careful smile, the way the image captured her beauty, but missed the fear he'd seen in her eyes. "Could be. I didn't get a good look. The lighting was bad and she had her head down." "Could be isn't yes or no, Mr. Brooks." "Then I don't know. Maybe." The other man, taller, younger, looked like he worked out professionally, leaned forward. "Mr. Brooks, do you understand the seriousness of this situation? I understand a woman was sick and I tried to help. This woman is Claire Ashford, daughter of Richard Ashford, who owns this building and employs you. She's been missing since last night. Her family is very concerned." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" The younger man's voice had an edge now. "Because we pulled the security footage from the parking garage. Your car left at 2:47 a.m. That's less than 15 minutes after you would have encountered Miss Ashford on the executive floor." Ethan's heart hammered, but he kept his face neutral. "I left early. Wasn't feeling well." "Without clocking out?" "I texted my supervisor." "After you'd already left the building." Amanda sat down across from him now, her hands folded on the table. "Mr. Brooks, let me be very clear. If you're hiding something, if you know where Claire Ashford is, you need to tell us now. This isn't a game. Her father has resources you can't imagine. People who can make your life very, very difficult." "I don't know where she is," Ethan said. "I saw someone who looked sick. I offered help. They refused. That's all I know." The younger man slammed his hand on the table, making Ethan flinch. "Stop lying. We know you took her. We know she's somewhere and you know where. Tell us." "Marcus." Amanda's voice was sharp. The younger man backed off, jaw clenched. Amanda turned back to Ethan. "We're going to search your apartment. We have probable cause and a judge who's willing to sign the warrant. If she's there, if you've done anything to her, you'll face charges that will put you away for years. Do you understand?" "I understand you're threatening me. I'm offering you a chance to make this easier on yourself." Ethan stood. "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet." "Then I'm leaving." "Mr. Brooks." But Ethan was already walking toward the door. His hands shook and his legs felt weak, but he kept moving, out of the conference room, toward the elevators, through the lobby. No one stopped him. No one followed. He made it half a block before he had to lean against a building, breathing hard. They were going to search his apartment. They were going to find Claire. And when they did, everything he'd said in that room would become evidence of obstruction, of kidnapping, of whatever charges Ashford's lawyers could dream up. His phone rang. "Mrs. Chen." Mr. Brooks, you need to come home right now. What's wrong? Is Lily? Lily is fine, but there are men here, at your door. They say they have warrant to search apartment. Don't let them in. I'm on my way. The bus was too slow. Ethan hailed a taxi he couldn't afford, gave the driver the address, promised an extra 20 if he hurried. The driver hurried. Riverside Apartments had never looked so run down. Ethan paid the driver, there went tomorrow's lunch money, and took the stairs 2 at a time to the second floor. 3 men stood outside his apartment door. Not police. Private security, wearing blazers with the Meridian logo. Mrs. Chen stood between them and the door, arms crossed, looking about as movable as a boulder. Mr. Brooks, one of the men said, we have a warrant to search these premises. Let me see it. The man handed over papers. Ethan scanned them, mostly legal language he didn't fully understand, but the judge's signature looked real. They could search. He couldn't stop them. Mrs. Chen, he said quietly, take Lily downstairs, go to your apartment. I stay, she said firmly. Please, I don't want her to see this. Mrs. Chen looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. She went inside, emerged 30 seconds later with Lily. The little girl's eyes were wide, scared. Daddy? It's okay, baby. Just some people who need to check on something. Go with Mrs. Chen. I'll come get you soon. Promise? The word stuck in his throat. Promise. Mrs. Chen led Lily away. The little girl looked back over her shoulder until they disappeared down the stairs. Shall we? The lead security man said, gesturing to the door. Ethan unlocked it and stepped aside. They went through his apartment like professionals, methodical, thorough, not destroying but not gentle either. They checked the bathroom, the kitchen, Lily's tiny bedroom. They saved his bedroom for last. Ethan held his breath. The lead man opened the door. The bedroom was empty. The bed was made. Military corners, smooth sheets. The window stood open, cold air pouring in. On the pillow sat a single piece of paper, folded in half. The security man grabbed it, read it, his face darkening. He showed it to Ethan. Thank you for the soup. Tell Mrs. Chen it helped. I'm sorry for the trouble. Where is she? The man demanded. I don't know. She was here, in this room. Where did she go? I told you, I don't know. The man got in Ethan's face, close enough that Ethan could smell coffee on his breath. You're playing a dangerous game, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Ashford doesn't forget people who interfere with his family. I didn't interfere with anyone. Someone was sick. I helped. She left. That's all there is. They searched for another 20 minutes, checking the same places twice, looking under the bed, in the closet, anywhere a person could conceivably hide. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. Finally, they gave up. This isn't over, the lead man said at the door. We'll be watching you. Every move, every call, everything. Good for you. The door slammed. Ethan stood in the middle of his violated apartment, listening to their footsteps fade down the hallway. She'd left. While he was at Meridian, answering questions and lying through his teeth, Claire had somehow pulled herself together and left. The window was open. She must have climbed down the fire escape. In her condition, barely able to stand that morning, she'd managed to escape. Ethan went to the bedroom window and looked out. The fire escape was old, rusted in places. The drop to the alley below was at least 12 feet. She could have seriously hurt herself, but she'd done it anyway. Rather than wait and let him take the fall, she'd left. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text this time. I'm safe. Thank you for everything. Please forget you ever met me. No signature. No way to respond. When he tried, the message bounced back. Number not in service. Ethan sat on the bed, Claire's thank you note still in his hand. The sheet smelled like her shampoo, expensive and floral. Everything in his cheap apartment suddenly felt smaller, shabbier, more temporary. A knock at the door made him tense, but it was just Mrs. Chen and Lily. They're gone, Mrs. Chen announced. I saw from window. Lily ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Are you okay, Daddy? I'm okay, baby. Where's Claire? She had to go home. Without saying goodbye. She was in a hurry. Lily pulled back, looking up at him with those two knowing eyes. Did we help her? I think so, yeah. Good. She hugged him again. You always help people, Mrs. Chen was looking around the apartment, taking in the disarray. What happens now? She asked quietly. I don't know, Ethan admitted. I honestly don't know. What happened was nothing. For 3 days, Ethan waited for the other shoe to drop. For more security, for police, for lawyers. Nothing came. He went to work at Meridian, half expecting to be fired, but his supervisor just nodded when he showed up. No mention of the investigation, no questions. It was like it had never happened. Except Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Claire, about the fear in her eyes, the way she'd looked at his shabby apartment like it was the safest place in the world, about her climbing down that fire escape, sick and weak, rather than let him face consequences for helping her. On the 4th day, something changed. Ethan came home from his shift to find an envelope taped to his door. No name, no return address. Inside was a cashier's check for $10,000 and a note on expensive stationery. For the trouble. Please accept this with our gratitude for your discretion. R. Ashford. $10,000. More money than Ethan had seen in one place in years. Enough to catch up on rent, buy Lily new shoes, maybe even put something away for emergencies. Blood money. Silence money. Money to make sure he kept his mouth shut about what really happened that night. Ethan stood there for a long time, holding the check. He thought about what he could do with it, the breathing room it would give him, the security. Then he thought about Claire, desperate and alone, and what this money really represented. Not gratitude. Control. He tore the check in half, then in quarters, then kept tearing until it was confetti in his hands. Mrs. Chen found him like that, standing in the hallway with pieces of paper at his feet. What is that? She asked. A bribe. She looked at the scattered pieces, at Ethan's face, and nodded slowly. You are either very stupid or very brave. Probably both. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering where Claire was, if she was safe, if she'd managed to escape whatever cage her father had built for her. Around 3 a.m., his phone lit up with a notification, an email from an address he didn't recognize, no subject line. He almost deleted it as spam, but something made him open it. Inside was a single sentence. The bird is free. Ethan read it 3 times, his chest tight. He didn't know if Claire had sent it herself or if someone had sent it on her behalf. Didn't know if it was true or just something meant to ease his conscience. But he chose to believe it. The bird was free. 2 weeks passed before Ethan understood that the silence wasn't mercy. It was strategy. The first sign came when his landlord knocked on his door on a Tuesday morning, just as Ethan was getting Lily ready for school. Mr. Kowalski was a heavy-set man in his 60s who usually communicated through tersely worded notes slipped under the door. He'd never visited in person before. Mr. Brooks, he said, not meeting Ethan's eyes. We need to discuss your lease. Ethan felt something cold settle in his stomach. What about it? Renewal's coming up next month. Building's going through some changes, new ownership, new policies. Kowalski shifted his weight, uncomfortable. Rent's going up, $1,500 a month instead of $900. $1,500? Ethan's voice came out strangled. That's a 60% increase. That's not legal. It is if the building changes hands. New owner can set new rates. Kowalski finally looked at him. I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks. Nothing I can do about it. Who's the new owner? Some property management company. Meridian Holdings, I think. The name hit Ethan like a fist. Meridian. Of course it was Meridian. When did this sale happen? Papers went through last week. Everyone's getting notices today. But Kowalski's eyes said what his mouth wouldn't. You're the only one whose rent is jumping that high. After Kowalski left, Ethan stood in the doorway, staring at the notice in his hands. The letterhead was professional, the language polite. Nothing explicitly threatening. Just business. Just the market. Just revenge. Daddy, Lily appeared beside him, backpack already on. We're going to be late. Ethan folded the notice and shoved it in his pocket. Right, let's go, baby. He walked Lily to the bus stop 3 blocks away, same as every morning. She chattered about a project they were doing in class, something with construction paper and glue. Ethan made the right noises, but his mind was elsewhere, calculating numbers that didn't add up. $1,500 a month. He made barely 2,000 working nights at Meridian. After rent, after food, after Mrs. Chen's $40 a week, there'd be nothing left. Less than nothing. The bus pulled up, yellow and loud. Lily hugged his waist. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, baby." He watched the bus disappear around the corner, then pulled out his phone and called the number on the notice. A woman answered on the third ring. "Meridian Holdings, how can I help you?" "I'm calling about a rent increase notice for Riverside Apartments, Unit 2C. "One moment, please." The hold music was something classical and vaguely insulting. When she came back, her voice had shifted to carefully neutral. "Yes, Mr. Brooks. Your new lease terms are standard for the building renovation we're planning. No one else is getting a 60% increase. I'm not at liberty to discuss other tenants' lease terms." "This is retaliation," Ethan said. "You know it, and I know it." "I'm sorry you feel that way, Mr. Brooks. If you're unable to meet the new terms, we understand. You'll have 30 days to find alternative housing once you provide written notice of your intent to vacate." The line went dead. Ethan stood there on the sidewalk, people flowing around him on their way to work, to coffee shops, to lives that made sense. His phone felt heavy in his hand. When he got back to the apartment, Mrs. Chen was waiting on the stairs outside his door. She held an envelope identical to the one Kowalski had given him. "You got one too?" Ethan asked. She shook her head. "Mine says $50 more a month. Yours?" "600 more." Mrs. Chen's face hardened. "They're targeting you." "Yeah. Because of the girl." "Yeah." They went inside and Mrs. Chen made tea while Ethan sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands. The apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in. 4 years he'd lived here. 4 years of making it work, of scraping by, of building something that resembled stability. And now it was crumbling because he'd made the mistake of being kind. "What will you do?" Mrs. Chen asked, setting a cup in front of him. "I don't know. Find somewhere cheaper, I guess. Further out. Maybe Queens." "Queens is far. Too far for Lily's school." "Then she'll change schools." "She likes her school. She has friends." "I know." Ethan wrapped his hands around the cup, letting the heat seep into his palms. "I know, Mrs. Chen." They sat in silence. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere above them, someone's footsteps crossed back and forth across the floor. "You could take the money," Mrs. Chen said quietly. "What money?" "The check. The one you tore up. Maybe you could ask for another." "No." "But pride is expensive, Mr. Brooks." "It's not pride, it's—" Ethan stopped, trying to find words for something he couldn't quite articulate. "If I take their money, then everything I did becomes a transaction. Like I helped her because I wanted something, and I didn't. I couldn't walk away." Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. "I understand, but understanding doesn't pay rent." The second sign came 3 days later. Ethan was at Meridian working his shift when his supervisor called him into the office. Martin was a tired-looking man in his 40s who'd been managing the night cleaning crew for 6 years. He'd always been fair with Ethan, never wrote him about small things, always approved time-off requests for Lily's school events. Now he looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Have a seat, Ethan." Ethan sat. The office was small, cramped with filing cabinets and a desk covered in paperwork. A photo of Martin's wife and kids sat next to the computer monitor. "We've had some complaints," Martin said. "What kind of complaints?" "About the quality of your work, missed spots, areas not properly sanitized." Ethan stared at him. "From who?" "Executive floor staff. They've submitted formal reports." Martin slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printed photos, trash cans that hadn't been emptied, fingerprints on glass doors, a water stain on carpet. None of it was from areas Ethan cleaned. "These aren't my zones," Ethan said. "Half of these are on floors I'm not even assigned to." "The reports say otherwise." "Then the reports are lying." Martin rubbed his face. "Look, Ethan, I'm going to level with you. This is coming from above me, way above me. I don't know what you did or who you pissed off, but someone wants you gone. So fire me." "I can't just fire you without cause. That's what this is about. They're building a case. These complaints, they're creating a paper trail. And you're helping them." Martin's jaw tightened. I've got a family, I've got a mortgage, I've got a boss who made it very clear what happens if I don't cooperate. Ethan stood up. When's my next shift? Tomorrow night. But Ethan, I'll be here, and I'll do my job. And if they want to fire me, they can at least be honest about why. He left before Martin could respond. The walk home took longer than usual. Ethan got off the bus 3 stops early, needing the air, the movement, the illusion that he had somewhere to go. The city at night was different than during the day, sharper, harder, full of people who looked right through you. His phone rang. Another unknown number. Ethan almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Brooks? A man's voice this time. Older, cultured, the kind of voice that came from private schools and country clubs. My name is Robert Ashford. I believe you've met my daughter. Ethan stopped walking. Around him the city continued. Cars, people, lights. None of it seemed real. Mr. Ashford? I wanted to thank you personally for your assistance several weeks ago. Claire tells me you were very kind. She's all right then. She's safe, yes, though the circumstances of that evening were complicated. Ethan waited. This was going somewhere. I understand you're facing some difficulties, Ashford continued. With your housing situation, your employment, these are unfortunate coincidences. We both know they're not coincidences. No. The word was flat, honest. They're not. My head of security is a very thorough man, perhaps overly so. He feels that your involvement in Claire's disappearance requires a response. I helped your daughter. You interfered with a private family matter. You took her from the building without authorization. You lied to our security personnel. Ashford paused. From Marcus's perspective, these things require consequences. And from your perspective? I'm a pragmatic man, Mr. Brooks. I believe in resolving situations cleanly, which is why I'm calling. Here it comes, Ethan thought. I'm prepared to make all of this go away, Ashford said. The rent increase, the employment issues, all of it. In exchange, I need your assurance that you'll sign a non-disclosure agreement. You won't speak to the press? Won't discuss that evening with anyone? Won't attempt to contact Claire again? I haven't attempted to contact her. Nevertheless, these are my terms. Sign the agreement, accept a settlement for your trouble, and move on with your life. Continue to refuse, and Marcus will continue to do what he does best, which is ruin people's lives, which is protect my family's interests. Ashford's tone didn't change. I'm not an unreasonable man, Mr. Brooks. I'm offering you a way out of this. At what price? $50,000, the NDA. And your silence? $50,000. Enough to move somewhere better, somewhere safer. Enough to stop worrying about every dollar, every bill. Enough to give Lily things she needed, things she deserved. I need to think about it, Ethan said. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer is withdrawn, and Marcus continues his work. Ashford hung up without saying goodbye. Ethan stood on the sidewalk, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to dead air. $50,000. All he had to do was sign a piece of paper saying he wouldn't talk about something he didn't fully understand anyway. All he had to do was pretend that night had never happened. He made it home to find Mrs. Chen on his couch, Lily asleep in her lap. The TV was on mute, showing some old movie neither of them was watching. You look terrible, Mrs. Chen observed. Feel terrible. Ethan collapsed into the armchair. Ashford called. The father? Yeah, made me an offer, 50 grand and an NDA. Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose. That's a lot of money. Yeah. But you're not going to take it. I don't know yet. Yes, you do. She shifted carefully, not wanting to wake Lily. I see it in your face. You already decided. Ethan looked at his daughter, peaceful in sleep, her mouth slightly open. She needed new shoes, new clothes. She needed a father who could provide more than constant worry and moving boxes. But she also needed a father who didn't teach her that everything had a price. What would you do? He asked Mrs. Chen. Me? I would take the money. I'm old and practical, and I know how the world works. She looked at Lily, then back at Ethan. But I'm not the one who has to live with the choice. That night, Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet, except for the usual sounds. Pipes, neighbors, the distant rumble of traffic. His phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent. He thought about Claire, climbing down that fire escape, about the fear in her eyes when she'd asked him not to call security, about the note she'd left. Thank you for the soup. She hadn't asked for $50,000. She'd asked for help. And he'd given it because it was the right thing to do, not because it was smart or safe or beneficial, because it was right. Taking Ashford's money wouldn't change what had happened, but it would change what it meant. Ethan picked up his phone and typed a message to the number Ashford had called from. No deal. Do your worst. He sent it before he could reconsider, then turned off the phone and rolled over, pulling the thin blanket up to his chin. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought, but at least he'd be able to look at himself in the mirror. The worst started small. First, his work schedule got cut. Martin called him in and said they were reducing night shift coverage. Sorry, nothing personal. Ethan went from 5 nights a week to 3, then 2. His paycheck shrank accordingly. Then Lily's school called. There was a problem with her registration paperwork, they said. Some discrepancy with the address on file. Could he come in to sort it out? Ethan went. The school administrator was apologetic but firm. The address he'd provided was outside the district boundaries by half a block. Lily couldn't attend unless he paid out-of-district tuition. How much? Ethan asked, though he already knew he couldn't afford it. $3,000 per semester. $6,000 a year. For a public school. Because someone had redrawn district lines and his building suddenly didn't count. This is insane, Ethan said. She's been going here for 2 years. I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks. District policy. We can help you find a school in your correct zone. Which is where? The administrator checked her computer. PS 47, about 4 miles from your current address. 4 miles. No bus route. No way for a 6-year-old to get there safely. Ethan left the school office feeling hollowed out. In the parking lot, he sat in his car and tried to breathe normally. This was calculated, surgical. Ashford's people had found every pressure point in his life and were applying force. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You have other options. The offer stands. Ethan deleted it. That evening, Mrs. Chen came over with more soup. She took one look at his face and set the pot down. What now? Lily's school, they're kicking her out unless I pay $6,000 a year. That's illegal. Apparently not. They changed the district lines. We're out by half a block. Mrs. Chen sat down heavily. This is too much. They're going too far. That's the point. They want me to break. Maybe you should. Ethan looked at her sharply. Mrs. Chen raised her hands. I'm just saying, you've made your point. You stood up for what's right, but Lily needs school. You need work. Maybe it's time to be practical. I can't. Why not? Because if I do, then what was it all for? All of this, the rent, the job, the school, it's all about them proving they can control me, that they can buy anyone. If I take the money now, after all this, then they win. They already won, Mr. Brooks. They have all the power, all the money. All you have is stubbornness. No. Ethan's voice was harder than he'd intended. What I have is the truth. I helped someone who needed help. I didn't do it for money or favors or connections. I did it because it was right. And if I let them turn that into a transaction now, then I'm saying it was never about being right. It was just about negotiating a price. Mrs. Chen studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, then we fight. We? You think I'm going to let you do this alone? I'm old, not dead. We figure this out together. The next morning, Ethan started looking for new work. He couldn't rely on Meridian anymore. They'd made that clear. He applied everywhere. Other cleaning companies, warehouses, retail. Anything with hours that wouldn't conflict with Lily's schedule, whatever school that ended up being. Most places didn't call back. The ones that did had questions. Your last employer was Meridian Holdings? Yes. And you're leaving because? Schedule differences. I see. The tone said they didn't believe him. We'll be in touch. They never were. After the 5th rejection, Ethan started to understand. Ashford's reach extended further than he'd thought. A word in the right ear, a flag in the right database, and suddenly Ethan Brooks became unemployable. He was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at another rejection email, when someone knocked. Not Mrs. Chen. Not the landlord. Someone new. Through the peephole, Ethan saw a woman in her 30s, professional clothes, carrying a briefcase. She looked expensive. He opened the door a crack, keeping the chain on. Mr. Brooks? My name is Jennifer Reeves. I'm an attorney. She handed a card through the gap. I'd like to talk to you about your situation. I can't afford a lawyer. I'm not asking you to pay me. I'm asking you to hear me out. Ethan studied the card. Jennifer Reeves, partner, Reeves and Associates. A downtown address that probably costs more per month than his entire apartment building. Who sent you? I sent myself. Can I come in? Against his better judgment, Ethan undid the chain and let her inside. Jennifer looked around the apartment with the kind of professional poker face that didn't judge but didn't miss anything either. Coffee? Ethan offered, more from reflex than actual hospitality. No, thank you. I don't have much time. She set her briefcase on the table, clicked it open. I've been following your story, Mr. Brooks. The rent increase, the employment issues, the school situation. It's a pattern. You think? I know. Richard Ashford is a very powerful man, but he's not above the law. What's happening to you is actionable. Retaliation, harassment, possible antitrust violations, depending on how many properties Meridian Holdings controls in this area. And you want to sue him. I want to stop him from doing this to you. Yes, that might involve legal action. Ethan sat down across from her. Why? Why do you care what happens to a janitor from Riverside? Jennifer's expression shifted, something personal breaking through the professional veneer. Because 3 years ago, I was an associate at a firm that represented Ashford in a dozen cases. I saw what he does to people who get in his way, how he uses money and influence like weapons, and I got tired of being part of that machine. So you left. I left, started my own practice. Now I take cases like yours. People who need help fighting people like him. I still can't pay you. If we win, Ashford pays. If we lose, I eat the costs. That's how this works. It sounded too good to be true. Ethan had learned the hard way that things that sounded too good usually were. What's the catch? The catch is this will be public. Very public. The media will cover it. Ashford will fight back hard. He'll dig into your life, your history, everything. And he'll spin it so you look like the bad guy. The opportunist who tried to extort a billionaire's daughter. I didn't extort anyone. I know. But truth and perception are different things, Mr. Brooks. You need to understand what you're walking into. Ethan thought about Lily, about what it would be like for her, having reporters show up at school, having her classmates hear things about her father on the news. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow. After that, I'm taking another case and my window closes. Jennifer stood, closed her briefcase. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Helping Claire, refusing the money, all of it. But doing the right thing doesn't always end well. You should know that before you decide. After she left, Ethan sat alone in the quiet apartment. Through the wall, he could hear his neighbor's TV, some game show with canned laughter. His phone buzzed. Another text. Last chance. Sign the NDA. Take the money. Move on. Ethan stared at the message for a long time. Then he pulled up Jennifer Reeves's contact info and typed a new message. I'm in. Let's do this. He hit send before fear could stop him. The response came immediately. Good. Press conference is tomorrow at noon. Wear something clean. Ethan looked down at his worn jeans, his faded shirt. Everything he owned was worn or faded. He didn't have anything that looked like it belonged at a press conference. He was about to text back when his phone rang. The number was blocked. Hello? Mr. Brooks. It was Ashford again, but this time his voice had lost its careful politeness. I just received notice that you've retained Jennifer Reeves. That's a very foolish decision. Maybe. Let me be clear about what happens next. You and Ms. Reeves will hold your press conference. You'll tell your story, and then my attorneys will systematically destroy your credibility. We'll show that you have a history of poor decisions, failed marriage, job instability. We'll raise questions about your fitness as a parent. Ethan's hand tightened on the phone. Stay away from my daughter. I don't need to go near your daughter, Mr. Brooks. I just need to ask the questions. Why does a single father working nights leave his child with an elderly woman? Is that really proper supervision? What kind of judgment does it show to bring an unconscious stranger into a home with a young child? You bastard. I'm a father protecting his family. You're a janitor who got involved in something above his understanding. That's the story everyone will hear. Ashford's voice got quieter, almost gentle. This doesn't have to happen, Ethan. You can still walk away. No, Ethan said. I really can't. He hung up before Ashford could respond. His hands were shaking. He set the phone down on the table and pressed his palms flat against the surface, trying to steady himself. They were going to come after Lily. Not directly, but through questions and implications and whispers. They were going to make him look like a bad father, an irresponsible parent, someone whose child would be better off elsewhere. And maybe they had a point. Maybe leaving Lily with Mrs. Chen every night wasn't ideal. Maybe bringing Claire into their home had been reckless. Maybe he was making mistake after mistake and dragging his daughter down with him. But he'd done it all trying to survive, trying to build something, trying to show Lily that the world didn't have to be about power and money and crushing anyone who got in your way. The door opened and Lily came in, home from school, her last day at that school, with paint on her hands and a drawing she'd made. Look, Daddy, we did art today. The drawing showed 3 stick figures, a tall one, a small one, and a medium one with gray hair. That's you, me, and Mrs. Chen, Lily explained, pointing to each. We're a family. Ethan pulled her into a hug, holding her tight enough that she squeaked. Daddy, you're squishing me. Sorry, baby. He let go but kept his hands on her shoulders. Listen, tomorrow's going to be a weird day. Some people might ask you questions about me, about us. What kind of questions? About whether I'm a good dad. Lily's face scrunched up in confusion. But you are a good dad. I know, but sometimes people don't understand things. They make guesses. They say things that aren't true. Then I'll tell them the truth. You might not get the chance, but I need you to remember something, okay? No matter what anyone says, no matter what you hear, I love you. Everything I do because I love you. You understand? Lily nodded seriously. I understand, Daddy. But she didn't. How could she? She was 6. She didn't understand that tomorrow her father was going to war with a billionaire, that their lives were about to get turned inside out, that everything might get worse before it got better, if it ever got better at all. That night, Ethan lay awake again, thinking about the press conference, about what Jennifer would say, about how Ashford's attorneys would respond, about whether he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. The morning of the press conference, Ethan woke to find Mrs. Chen already in his kitchen, ironing a white shirt he'd forgotten he owned. She'd found it in the back of his closet, probably from some job interview years ago, and was working the wrinkles out with fierce concentration. You don't have to do that, Ethan said, standing in the doorway. Yes, I do. You cannot go on television looking like a homeless person. She held up the shirt, examined it critically. This will do. Not great, but acceptable. Mrs. Chen, I also bring tie. Belonged to my husband. He was good man. Would want you to have it. She pulled a navy blue tie from her bag, slightly outdated but clean. You wear this. You look respectable. Ethan's throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't mess this up. Lily was still asleep. Ethan checked on her before getting dressed, watching her breathe in that boneless way kids had, like nothing in the world could touch them. He wanted to keep her that way, protected, innocent. But after today, that might not be possible anymore. He put on the shirt Mrs. Chen had ironed, fumbled with the tie until she came in and did it for him with practiced efficiency. In the bathroom mirror, he looked like someone playing dress-up. The shirt was slightly too big, the tie a little too short. But it was the best he had. Jennifer had said to meet her at her office by 11. The press conference was set for noon at a hotel conference room downtown. She'd handle the talking, she'd said. All Ethan had to do was stand there and look honest. That's my specialty, he'd told her, looking poor and honest. Use it, she'd replied without humor. Mrs. Chen insisted on watching Lily, even though it was supposed to be her day off from her cleaning job. She stays with me. You do what you have to do. Ethan took the bus downtown, standing in the aisle because all the seats were full. Around him, people scrolled through phones, listened to music, existed in their own separate worlds. None of them knew that his world was about to either crack wide open or collapse completely. Jennifer's office was on the 23rd floor of a building nicer than any Ethan had entered as anything other than a janitor. The lobby had actual art, not prints. The elevator was smooth and fast. The receptionist smiled like she meant it. Jennifer met him in the conference room, already dressed for battle in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent used to be. She looked him over and nodded once. Good enough. You look like what you are. A mess? A working father doing his best. She handed him a bottle of water. Drink this. You're going to be under hot lights and you'll get dry mouth when you're nervous. I'm not nervous. Yes, you are. It's fine. Nervous is good. Nervous looks sincere. At 11:30, they took a car to the hotel. Not a taxi, a car service that Jennifer had arranged. Ethan felt ridiculous sitting in the back of a town car in his borrowed tie. There's going to be media, Jennifer warned as they pulled up to the hotel. Local news for sure, maybe some national. Ashford's people will be there too, watching. Don't engage with them. Don't answer questions I haven't prepped you for. If someone tries to rattle you, look at me. What if they ask about Lily? They will. I'll handle it. The hotel conference room was already half full when they arrived. Cameras on tripods, photographers with lenses the size of small children, reporters checking phones and comparing notes. At the front of the room, a podium had been set up with microphones. Behind it, a simple blue backdrop with no logos, no branding, just clean and professional. Jennifer's assistant, a young guy named Marcus, who was definitely not the same Marcus from Meridian Security, handed her a folder and whispered something. Jennifer nodded, scanned the room, then turned to Ethan. Ashford's attorneys just arrived. Don't look. They're in the back on the left. Ethan looked anyway. Two men in suits that made Jennifer's look cheap, standing with arms crossed, faces blank. One of them was typing on his phone, probably messaging Ashford right now, telling him the show was about to start. At exactly noon, Jennifer stepped up to the podium. The room quieted. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Reeves, and I'm here today representing Ethan Brooks in a matter of deliberate retaliation and harassment by Meridian Holdings and its principal, Richard Ashford. The cameras started clicking, a sound like rain on a metal roof. 3 weeks ago, my client performed a simple act of kindness. He found a young woman who was ill and in distress, and he helped her. He didn't know who she was. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just did what any decent person would do. Jennifer paused, letting that sink in. Since that night, my client has been systematically targeted. His rent was increased by 60% through a shell company acquisition. His work hours were cut to almost nothing based on fabricated performance complaints. His daughter's school suddenly discovered zoning issues that hadn't existed for 2 years. All of this happened within a 3-week window. All of it can be traced back to companies and individuals connected to Richard Ashford. A reporter raised her hand. Ms. Reeves, are you saying Mr. Ashford is personally involved in these actions? I'm saying the pattern is unmistakable. When a single individual experiences this many coordinated difficulties immediately after helping a billionaire's daughter, that's not coincidence. That's punishment. Do you have proof of Mr. Ashford's direct involvement? We have documentation of the property transfer, the employment complaints, the school redistricting. We have communications from Meridian Holdings offering substantial financial settlements in exchange for silence. We have a pattern of behavior consistent with retaliation. Another reporter, a younger guy with glasses. Mr. Brooks, can you tell us what happened the night you found Claire Ashford? Jennifer had prepped him for this. Stick to the facts. No editorializing, no emotion. Ethan stepped up to the microphone, and the lights were even hotter than Jennifer had warned. He could feel sweat already forming at his collar. I was working my shift as a janitor at Meridian Tower. Around 2:30 in the morning, I found a woman collapsed near the executive elevators. She was running a high fever. She asked me not to call security. She seemed scared, so I helped her to my car and took her to my apartment where she could rest safely. Did you know who she was? Not at the time, no. When did you find out? A few days later when security came looking for her. Why didn't you take her to a hospital? She specifically asked me not to. She was in distress, and I respected her wishes. One of Ashford's attorneys raised his voice from the back. Mr. Brooks, isn't it true you were offered compensation for your silence and refused? Doesn't that suggest you were holding out for a larger payment? Jennifer stepped in front of the microphone. That question presupposes facts not in evidence and mischaracterizes the nature of the offer. Next question. But the damage was done. Ethan could see it in the reporters' faces, the slight shift, the new angle they were calculating. Man helps billionaire's daughter, refuses payment, then claims harassment. Was he a good Samaritan or an opportunist who'd miscalculated? The press conference lasted another 20 minutes. More questions, more careful answers, more loaded implications from Ashford's people in the back. By the time Jennifer wrapped it up, Ethan felt like he'd been through a ringer. Outside the conference room, Jennifer pulled him aside. That went about as well as we could expect. They think I'm trying to shake him down. Some of them do, but some of them see the story we're telling. Give it time. How much time? Ashford's people will respond within hours. Probably a statement calling this a baseless money grab. They'll question your character, your motivations, maybe hint at concerns about your parenting. We knew this was coming. Knowing it's coming doesn't make it easier. Jennifer's expression softened slightly. Go home. Be with your daughter. Don't watch the news tonight. We'll regroup in the morning and plan our next move. Ethan took the bus home because the car service was a one-time thing and he couldn't afford a taxi. The ride felt longer than usual. Every stop another delay between him and Lily. He checked his phone compulsively, watching the story spread across local news sites. The headlines were mixed. Janitor claims retaliation after helping billionaire's daughter. Good deed or gold digger? The Ethan Brooks story. Single father battles real estate mogul over act of kindness. Some painted him as a hero. Others implied he was playing victim for profit. The comment sections were predictably vicious. People with no knowledge of the situation absolutely certain they knew the truth. By the time Ethan got home, Mrs. Chen had dinner ready, rice and vegetables, simple but filling. Lily was at the table doing homework, pencil gripped too tight, tongue stuck out in concentration. How did it go? Mrs. Chen asked quietly while Lily was focused on her math problems. Hard to say. We told our story. Now we see if anyone believes it. People will believe. You have honest face. Mrs. Chen, I really don't think that's how this works. She shrugged. Then we find out. That evening, despite Jennifer's advice, Ethan couldn't help himself. He turned on the local news while Lily was in the bath. The story was their third segment, right after a piece about a water main break and before the weather. The anchor introduced it with practiced neutrality. A local man is accusing billionaire Richard Ashford of orchestrating a campaign of retaliation after he helped Ashford's daughter during a medical emergency. Ethan Brooks, a janitor at one of Ashford's properties, held a press conference today with attorney Jennifer Reeves. They showed clips from the press conference, Jennifer speaking, Ethan at the microphone looking uncomfortable. Then they cut to a statement from Ashford's legal team. A polished man in his 50s stood in front of Meridian Towers lobby, speaking directly to camera. Mr. Brooks' allegations are completely without merit. Mr. Ashford appreciates that, Mr. Brooks offered assistance to his daughter during a difficult time. However, his subsequent demands for compensation and his refusal to sign a standard non-disclosure agreement suggest motivations beyond simple kindness. The property and employment matters. Mr. Brooks' references are unrelated business decisions made by independent entities. Any attempt to connect these ordinary business practices to Mr. Ashford personally is not only false, but defamatory. Mr. Ashford reserves all legal remedies available to him. The anchor turned to a legal analyst in the studio. So what's your take on this? The analyst, a woman with perfect hair and a law degree she'd probably mentioned 3 times already, weighed in with the confidence of someone who'd never missed a rent payment. It's a classic, he said, she said, but with one party having substantially more resources than the other. Brooks's attorney will need to prove not just that these things happened, but that Ashford personally directed them. That's going to be very difficult without internal communications or a whistleblower. Meanwhile, Ashford's team is framing this as a shakedown attempt, which muddies the waters considerably. What about the offer Brooks claims to have refused? If Brooks can prove he was offered money for silence, that actually strengthens his case. It suggests Ashford's team knew there was something to hide, but if they characterize it as standard confidentiality protection, which is common in situations involving high-profile individuals, then it becomes more ambiguous. Ethan turned off the TV, standard confidentiality protection. Unrelated business decisions, not only false, but defamatory. They were good. He had to give them that. They'd taken everything that had happened and made it sound reasonable, mundane, just business. And they'd planted the seed. Maybe Ethan was the bad guy here. Maybe he'd seen an opportunity and grabbed it. Maybe this whole thing was exactly what Ashford's attorney had said, a shakedown that hadn't gone as planned. His phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. "Don't watch the news. I told you not to watch the news." "Too late," Ethan typed back. Her response came immediately. Their statement was predictable. Ours was better. Get some sleep. But sleep didn't come. Ethan lay in bed, hearing every creak of the building, every car passing outside. Around midnight, his phone lit up with an unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Hello?" Silence on the other end, then breathing. Then a voice he recognized. "It's me, Claire." "How did you get this number?" Ethan asked. "That doesn't matter. I saw the news. I saw what they're doing to you." "Yeah, well, you warned me. This is my fault. I should have found another way. You were sick. You were scared. You did what you had to do." Claire was quiet for a moment. "They're saying terrible things about you on the news, online. My father's people are spreading stories, making you look like a deadbeat dad trying to score a payday. I know. I've seen it. I can stop this. I can tell them the truth. I can make a statement." "No," Ethan said immediately. "That's exactly what they want. You come forward, you get dragged into this mess, and then it becomes about you instead of what they're doing. Plus, whatever you're running from, whatever situation you escaped, you go public now, you go right back into it." "But you're suffering because of me." "I'm suffering because your father's a vindictive bastard who can't stand the idea that someone might have done something good without wanting a reward. That's not on you." "Ethan, are you safe?" he asked. "That's all I need to know. Are you safe?" "Yes. I'm staying with a friend, somewhere my father can't reach me." "Good. Stay there. Stay quiet. Let me handle this." "How? How are you going to handle this when they have all the power?" "I don't know yet, but I'm not giving up. And I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself to make this easier." Claire's voice got smaller. "I don't understand you. Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep helping me when it costs you everything?" Ethan thought about that, about the real answer, which he couldn't quite articulate even to himself. "Because someone should," he said finally. "Because the world where people like your father win every time, where money crushes everything good, I don't want to live in that world. I don't want my daughter to grow up thinking that's just how things are. That's exactly how things are." Maybe, but maybe they don't have to be. After Claire hung up, Ethan lay in the dark, thinking about what he'd said. Brave words, noble sentiments, but the reality was messier. He was scared. He was tired. He was running out of money and running out of options, and Ashford's people were just getting started. The next day brought the second wave. Ethan woke to find his phone filled with notifications, missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize, texts from old acquaintances he hadn't spoken to in years, all asking the same thing. Is it true? He scrolled through messages from a guy he'd worked with at his previous job. "Dude, is this really about helping someone, or are you trying to get paid?" From a distant cousin. "Saw you on the news. Mom says you always had bad judgment." From Jennifer's office. "Don't respond to anything. Forward all media requests to me." Ethan got Lily ready for school. Except she didn't have school anymore, did she? The district had kicked her out. He'd need to register her somewhere else, somewhere she could actually attend, but he hadn't had time to figure out where. "Am I staying home today?" Lily asked, hopeful. She liked staying home, even if it meant being bored while Ethan job hunted or dealt with lawyers. "Yeah, baby, just for a little while. Until Daddy figures some things out. Okay?" She went to her room to play, unbothered. Kids were resilient like that. They adapted to chaos because they didn't know any different. Mrs. Chen arrived at 9 with newspapers, actual physical newspapers, the kind people still bought when they wanted to see their news in print. "You're on page 3, she announced, spreading the Metro section on Ethan's kitchen table. The article was longer than the TV segment had been, with more details. It included quotes from the press conference, Ashford's response, and additional commentary from people with no direct knowledge of the situation, but plenty of opinions. One quote stood out from an unnamed source close to the Ashford family. Ethan Brooks saw an opportunity when he found Claire in a vulnerable state. He's a struggling single father with financial problems, and the Ashfords are a wealthy family. The math isn't complicated. Ethan read it 3 times, feeling something cold and sharp settle in his chest. "They're destroying me," he said quietly. "Piece by piece, they're taking my life apart." "So you fight back," Mrs. Chen said. "You show them who you really are." "How? How do I do that when they control the narrative?" "You live your life. You take care of your daughter. You keep being the man I know you are." She poured tea, set a cup in front of him. "Truth always comes out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually." "And what happens to me in the meantime?" Mrs. Chen had no answer for that. Around 11, Jennifer called. Her voice was tight, controlled anger just beneath the surface. "Ashford's team just filed a defamation suit against both of us. $50 million. Ethan's brain stalled. 50 million? It's a slap suit, strategic lawsuit against public participation. They don't expect to win. The point is to drain our resources, make us spend time and money defending ourselves, scare us into backing down. Will it work? Not on me. I've dealt with these before. But Ethan, you need to understand what this means. They're going to depose you. They're going to go through your entire life with a microscope. Bank records, tax returns, employment history, your marriage, your divorce, everything. They'll look for anything that makes you look bad. There's plenty that makes me look bad. I'm poor, I've been fired, my wife left me, my life is a disaster. None of that matters. What matters is intent. Did you help Claire expecting payment? Did you refuse their initial offer thinking you could get more? Did you orchestrate any of this? No? Then we fight. But I need you to be ready. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Worse arrived that afternoon in the form of a child services investigator at Ethan's door. The woman was in her 40s, professional, holding a clipboard and an ID badge that looked official. Her name was Sandra Martinez, and she apologized before she even started asking questions. "Mr. Brooks, I'm required to follow up on concerns raised about child welfare. This is standard procedure when a parent is involved in a legal dispute." "Who raised concerns?" "I'm not at liberty to say, but I need to ask you some questions and see the living environment. May I come in?" Ethan let her in because he didn't have a choice. Martinez looked around the apartment with the same careful neutrality the lawyer had, seeing everything and revealing nothing. She asked about Lily's sleeping arrangements, her supervision during Ethan's work hours, her school situation. "She's currently not enrolled anywhere," Ethan admitted. "The district rezoned us out of her previous school, and I'm in the process of finding a new placement." Martinez wrote that down. "How long has she been out of school?" 4 days. More writing. "And you work nights?" "I did. My hours have been cut recently." "Who supervises Lily when you're working?" "Mrs. Chen, a neighbor. She's been watching Lily for 3 years. She's wonderful with her." "Is Mrs. Chen a licensed childcare provider?" "No, she's a friend." Martinez's pen moved across the page. Every answer Ethan gave felt like it was building a case against him, even though he was just telling the truth. Finally, Martinez asked to speak with Lily alone. Ethan's chest tightened, but he nodded and called Lily from her room. His daughter came out curious, not scared, which was good. Martinez asked her gentle questions about whether she felt safe, whether she had enough to eat, whether Daddy ever hurt her or scared her. Lily answered honestly, describing their life in the simple terms a 6-year-old used. Yes, she felt safe. Yes, she had food, even if it was the same thing a lot. "No, Daddy never hurt her. He was the best daddy in the world." Martinez thanked her and let her go back to playing. Then she turned to Ethan. "Mr. Brooks, I'm not going to file a removal order. Your daughter is clearly cared for and loved. However, I do have concerns about the instability in your situation, the housing, the employment, the schooling. I'll be following up in 2 weeks to ensure Lily is enrolled somewhere and that your living situation has stabilized. If it hasn't, we'll need to discuss next steps." Next steps meaning what? Meaning we explore options that might better serve Lily's needs. After she left, Ethan sat on the couch and put his head in his hands. They were going after his daughter. Not directly, not obviously, but through process and procedure and concern. They were trying to take her away from him. Mrs. Chen found him like that 20 minutes later. She sat beside him, said nothing, just put her hand on his shoulder. "I can't do this," Ethan said. "I can't fight them. They're too big, too powerful. They'll keep coming until there's nothing left." "Then you give up?" "I don't know. Maybe I should. Maybe I should just sign their papers, take their money, make this stop." "And what you tell Lily? What you tell her when she asks why you quit?" Ethan raised his head, looked at Mrs. Chen. "I tell her I did it to protect her, to keep her safe." You think she believed that? You think she not see the truth? That her father gave up because he was scared?" "I am scared. Being scared is okay. Giving up because you're scared is not." Mrs. Chen stood up, moved toward the kitchen. "You want tea?" "No. I want this to be over." "Then make it over, but not by surrendering, by winning." "How am I supposed to win against someone like Ashford?" "By being someone he can't understand. Someone who won't break. Someone who can't be bought." But boy, she filled the kettle anyway, set it on the stove. "You think he respects money? Power?" "No. Men like that, they respect one thing. Someone who stands up and won't sit down. You show him that. You show him you're not like everyone else he's crushed." Ethan watched the kettle heat up, listened to the water start to rumble inside. Maybe Mrs. Chen was right. Maybe the only way through this was straight ahead, consequences and all. Or maybe he was just too stubborn to know when to quit. The kettle whistled and Mrs. Chen poured tea neither of them would drink. Outside, the city moved on with its business, indifferent to the small war being waged in a shabby second-floor apartment. Ethan's phone rang. Jennifer again. "I'm pulling together our response to the defamation suit," she said without preamble. "But I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay. Is there anything in your past they can use, and anything at all that would make you look bad? Arrests, debts, restraining orders, anything?" Ethan thought through the wreckage of his life. "I've got credit card debt, about $8,000. Some medical bills from when Lily had pneumonia 2 years ago that I'm still paying off. I was late on rent twice last year. My ex-wife has an email where I told her she was making a mistake leaving, that she'd regret it. Probably sounds threatening if you read it the wrong way." "That's it?" "That's it. I'm not a criminal, Jennifer. I'm just broke." "Broke they can work with. Broke makes you desperate, and desperate makes you capable of anything in their narrative." She paused. "But it's not disqualifying. We can frame it as a man doing his best under difficult circumstances. The question is whether the jury, if it gets that far, sees a struggling father or an opportunist. And which do you see?" Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "I see someone who's going to make me work very hard for free. Get some rest, Ethan. Tomorrow, we start building our case." But rest wasn't possible. That night, Ethan lay awake thinking about everything that could go wrong. Child services taking Lily. The lawsuit bankrupting him even though he had nothing to take. His name permanently attached to accusations of extortion and opportunism. Around 2 in the morning, his phone lit up with a text from another unknown number. "Meet me tomorrow. 10 a.m. Riverside Park, North Entrance. Come alone. R.A." Richard Ashford wanted to meet. Ethan stared at the message, reading it over and over. This was either a trap or an opportunity. Maybe both. He texted Jennifer immediately, despite the hour. She responded within minutes. "Don't go alone. I'm coming with you." "No," Ethan typed back. He said alone. "If I bring you, he'll just leave, then wear a wire, record everything. Is that legal?" "In this state, yes. One-party consent. I'll have something for you by morning." Ethan didn't sleep after that. He watched the ceiling, listened to the building settle, and wondered what Richard Ashford could possibly want to say face to face. Morning came gray and cold. Lily woke up asking for pancakes they didn't have ingredients for, so Ethan made toast with the last of the peanut butter instead. She ate it without complaint, swinging her legs under the table, humming something she'd learned in school back when she still went to school. Jennifer arrived at 8:30 with a recording device smaller than a deck of cards. She showed Ethan how to clip it inside his jacket, how to activate it with a simple button press. You get him talking, she instructed. Get him to admit he's behind the pressure campaign. Get him to say anything that connects him directly to what's been happening. And if he doesn't, then at least we know what we're dealing with. Mrs. Chen took Lily to her apartment so she wouldn't overhear any of this. Ethan stood in his empty living room, feeling the weight of the recorder against his chest. You don't have to do this, Jennifer said. We can decline the meeting, proceed with the lawsuit defense, take our chances. No. I want to hear what he has to say. Why? Ethan thought about that. Because all of this, the pressure, the lawsuit, the investigation, it's all done through intermediaries, lawyers, security teams, bureaucrats. I want to look him in the eye. I want him to see who he's trying to destroy. Jennifer nodded slowly. Be careful. Men like Ashford don't meet unless they think they have leverage. Riverside Park was a 15-minute walk from Ethan's apartment. The north entrance led to a path that followed the river, popular with joggers and dog walkers. At 10 in the morning on a Wednesday, it was moderately busy. Enough people around that Ethan didn't feel completely isolated, but spread out enough for private conversation. Richard Ashford was waiting on a bench overlooking the water. He wore casual clothes, slacks, a sweater, an overcoat that probably cost more than Ethan's car. He looked like someone's distinguished grandfather out for a morning walk, not a billionaire orchestrating a campaign of destruction. Ethan approached slowly, hand in his pocket touching the recorder's button. One press. That's all it took. Mr. Brooks. Ashford stood, extended his hand. Ethan didn't take it. Mr. Ashford. Please sit. Ashford gestured to the bench. I appreciate you coming. Ethan sat, leaving space between them. He pressed the button in his pocket, felt it engage with a tiny vibration. You wanted to meet, Ethan said. So talk. Ashford settled back against the bench, looking out at the river. A jogger passed, earbuds in, oblivious. A woman walked by with a golden retriever that sniffed in their direction before moving on. I want to understand you, Ashford said finally. I've been trying, and I can't. Understand what? Why you're doing this. Why you're refusing help, refusing compensation, refusing every reasonable offer I've made. You call what's been happening to me reasonable. I call it consequence. You interfered with my family, Mr. Brooks. You took my daughter. I helped your daughter. There's a difference. Without permission, without informing anyone of her whereabouts. From my perspective, that's kidnapping. Ethan turned to look at Ashford directly. From my perspective, it's called being a decent human being. Your daughter was sick and scared. She asked for help. I gave it. And then refused $25,000. Then refused $50,000. Most people would have taken the first offer and considered themselves lucky. I'm not most people. No. Ashford's voice carried something that might have been respect if Ethan squinted hard enough. You're not. Which brings me back to my question. What do you want? I want you to stop. Stop what? All of it. The rent increase. The job sabotage. The school problems. The lawsuit. The child services investigation. All of it. I haven't done any of those things. You expect me to believe that? Ashford turned to face him now, and his eyes were cold and clear. I expect you to understand how the world works. I own properties. I make business decisions. My security team makes recommendations about risks and liabilities. None of this requires my direct involvement. Plausible deniability. Reality. I don't need to tell my people what to do. They know what I expect. They know how to protect my interests. So you can destroy people's lives and never get your hands dirty. I can ensure my family's safety without personally managing every detail, yes. A cyclist passed, legs pumping, breath steaming in the cold air. Ethan watched until they disappeared around a bend in the path. Your daughter is safe because of me, Ethan said quietly. She got away from whatever she was running from. She's living her own life now, and you're punishing me for making that possible. I'm protecting my family from someone who could have exploited a vulnerable situation. But I didn't exploit it. That's what you can't seem to accept. I didn't want your money. I didn't want anything except to help someone who needed help. Ashford was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed slightly. Less certain, more genuinely curious. Why? Help me understand why a man in your position would turn down $50,000. You're struggling. You have a daughter to support. You're facing eviction, unemployment. 50,000 could have solved all of that. At what cost? A signature on a piece of paper. And my self-respect. And the ability to look my daughter in the eye and tell her I did the right thing. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You know what I've been teaching Lily? That money isn't everything, that character matters, that you help people because it's right, not because you'll get something out of it. How do I teach her those things if I turn around and sell out the moment it's convenient? You teach her that survival sometimes requires compromise. I teach her that some compromises cost more than they're worth. They sat in silence. The river moved past, indifferent and eternal. A leaf floated by, spinning slowly in an eddy. You really won't take the money, Ashford said. It wasn't a question. No. Even if it means losing everything? I've already lost everything that matters to you. Job security, financial stability, social standing, but I still have my daughter. I still have my integrity. Those are the things I won't compromise on. Ashford stood up, walked to the railing overlooking the water. Ethan stayed on the bench, watching. I've built an empire, Ashford said, his back to Ethan. 40 years of work, thousands of properties, tens of thousands of employees, billions in assets. I did it by understanding what motivates people. Fear, greed, ambition, pride. Everyone has a price or a pressure point. Everyone. Not everyone. That's what I'm beginning to realize. Ashford turned around. Marcus wanted to make an example of you. Show anyone else who might interfere with my family what happens. But you're not breaking. Every move we make, you absorb it and keep standing. It's almost admirable. Almost. Is there a point to this? The point is you've created a problem I can't solve the usual way. I can't buy you. I can't break you. And the more pressure I apply, the more sympathetic you look. Ashford came back to the bench, sat down closer this time. So I'm going to ask you directly. What will it take to end this? Ethan thought carefully. This was the moment Jennifer had wanted. Ashford acknowledging his involvement, admitting to the pressure campaign. But something in the older man's face suggested this wasn't a trick. It was genuine calculation, a businessman looking for a deal. I want everything reversed, Ethan said. Rent back to original terms, job with stable hours and fair treatment, Lily reinstated at her school. The lawsuit dropped. Child services called off. And I want a guarantee, in writing, legally binding, that you and anyone acting on your behalf will leave me and my family alone. That's all? That's all. You don't want money? I don't want your money. I never did. Ashford studied him like he was a puzzle with missing pieces. Most people, they'd use this moment to negotiate. Ask for a settlement, a payout, something to make the pain worthwhile. I'm not interested in making pain worthwhile. I'm interested in making it stop. In the lawsuit against me, Reeves is preparing a countersuit for harassment and retaliation. If you give me what I asked for, there's no lawsuit. We walk away from each other and stay walked away. Ashford pulled out his phone, typed something, put it away. I need to make some calls. Can you give me an hour? I've got nothing but time. Stay here. I'll be back. Ashford walked away, phone already to his ear. Ethan watched him go, then sat alone on the bench, the recorder still running in his pocket. 50 minutes later, Ashford returned. He didn't sit this time, just stood in front of the bench, hands in his coat pockets. It's done, he said. Meridian Holdings is selling your building back to the previous owner effective immediately. Your rent reverts to the original amount. Your employer has been instructed to restore your full schedule with back pay for lost hours. I've personally contacted the school district superintendent. Your daughter can return Monday. The defamation suit will be withdrawn by end of business today, and Child Services has been informed there was a misunderstanding in the initial report. Ethan felt something release in his chest that he hadn't realized was clenched. And the guarantee? My attorney will draw up an agreement. You'll have it by tomorrow. It will specify that neither I nor anyone associated with me will take any action against you or your family. Breach of that agreement comes with substantial penalties. Why? Ethan asked. Why are you doing this? Ashford looked at him for a long moment. Because you asked for something I could give without losing anything that matters. And because... He paused. Because my daughter called me this morning. First time she's called in 6 weeks. She told me what really happened that night. How sick she was, how scared, how you didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations, just helped. She didn't need to do that. She said you told her not to, that you told her to stay hidden, stay safe, let you handle it. Ashford's expression shifted, something almost like shame crossing his face. She said you were protecting her from me. I was protecting her from the situation. The situation I created by trying to control her life, by arranging a marriage she didn't want, by treating her like a business asset instead of a person. Ashford sat down on the bench again, suddenly looking older. She told me she'd rather live in your tiny apartment than in her room at our estate. That she felt safer with you and your daughter than she'd felt in years. That says something about the kind of father I've been. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. The recorder in his pocket was still running, capturing everything. I can't give Claire what she needs, Ashford continued. I don't know how. I've spent 40 years building and acquiring and controlling, and somewhere in there I forgot that people aren't properties. They can't be managed and leveraged and optimized. He looked at Ethan. But you know that. You've probably always known it. I just know how to be a dad, that's all. That's more than I know. Ashford stood again. The agreement will be delivered tomorrow. Sign it, send it back, and this ends. You go back to your life. I'll stay out of it. And Claire? Claire is living with a friend in Boston. She's enrolled in graduate school. She's happy, I think, or at least happier than she was. Ashford's jaw tightened. I'm trying to accept that she doesn't need me to build her future, that maybe the best thing I can do is stop interfering with it. That's probably the hardest thing a parent can learn. Yes. Ashford extended his hand again. Thank you, Mr. Brooks, for helping my daughter, for standing up to me, for being exactly the kind of man I wish I'd been. This time, Ethan shook his hand. After Ashford left, Ethan sat on the bench for another 20 minutes, making sure he was really gone. Then he reached into his pocket and turned off the recorder. Jennifer was going to be disappointed. Everything Ashford had said could be interpreted as a powerful man making peace, not admitting guilt. But Ethan didn't care. It was over. The fight was done. He called Jennifer from the park. How did it go? She asked immediately. It's over. He's reversing everything. I'll have an agreement tomorrow. What? Ethan, what did you say to him? The truth. That I didn't want his money. That I just wanted my life back. And he believed you? Yeah, I think he did. Jennifer was silent for a moment. I'll review the agreement when it comes through. Make sure there aren't any poison pills buried in the language. Thank you for everything. We didn't even get to the good part, the courtroom drama, the big reveal. This is better than courtroom drama. This is me getting to keep my daughter and my dignity. I suppose that'll have to do. But Jennifer sounded pleased. I'll send you my bill. I thought you said, I'm kidding, Ethan. This one's on me. Sometimes the win is enough. When Ethan got back to his apartment, Mrs. Chen was waiting with Lily. His daughter ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Daddy, Mrs. Chen made cookies. Did she? With chocolate chips. And she let me eat 3. Ethan looked at Mrs. Chen over Lily's head. The older woman shrugged unapologetically. Special occasion, she said. I could tell from your face when you walked in. Good news? Very good news. Ethan picked up Lily, even though she was getting too big for it. Baby, how would you like to go back to your old school? Lily's eyes went wide. Really? On Monday? On Monday. And I can see Emma and Marcus and Miss Peterson? All of them. Lily hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. Over her shoulder, Ethan saw Mrs. Chen smiling. That night after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat at his kitchen table with the recording device in front of him. He could give it to Jennifer, let her keep it as insurance. But something about that felt wrong, like he was holding on to ammunition for a fight that was finished. He deleted the recording, erased it completely. The agreement arrived by courier the next morning. Jennifer came over to review it, reading every line with the intensity of someone expecting traps. It's clean, she said finally, sounding almost disappointed. Standard mutual release. You agree not to sue him. He agrees not to take any action against you. Breach penalties are substantial enough to be meaningful. It's actually fair. So I should sign it? Yes, definitely. before he changes his mind. Ethan signed. Jennifer witnessed it, and they sent it back the same day. Monday morning, Ethan walked Lily to school. Her old school. The one where her friends were waiting, where her teacher knew her name, where she belonged. At the entrance, Lily turned and hugged him. "I miss this place," she said. "I know, baby." "Did you fix it? Did you make it so I could come back?" Ethan thought about how to answer that. "I stood up for what was right, and sometimes when you do that, things work out. Even when it's hard?" "Especially when it's hard." Lily nodded seriously, like she understood. Maybe she did. Maybe kids understood more than adults gave them credit for. He watched her run into the building, backpack bouncing, and felt something that had been tight in his chest for weeks finally relax. Work was different after that. Ethan got his full schedule back, and no one mentioned the complaints or the reduced hours. Martin, his supervisor, pulled him aside on his first night back. "Don't know what you did," Martin said, "but whatever it was, it worked. You're back to 5 nights, standard rate, no probation." "Thanks, Martin." "You're a good worker, Ethan, always have been. Sorry about everything." "Not your fault." Felt like it was. They shook hands, and that was it. Back to normal. Like the nightmare had never happened. Except things weren't quite normal. The rent went back to $900 a month, but Ethan noticed something odd in the paperwork. The building had been sold to a trust, and the trust management company was sending him lease renewal terms that locked in his rate for 5 years. No increases beyond standard inflation adjustments. When he mentioned it to Mrs. Chen, she just smiled. "Someone is making sure you're protected," she observed. "Yeah, I just don't know who." But he had suspicions. And 2 weeks later, those suspicions were confirmed when a letter arrived from Claire. It was short, written in neat handwriting on good paper. "Dear Ethan, I've been thinking about what to say to you since that night. Thank you feels too small for what you did, but it's all I have. You helped me when you had no reason to. You protected me when it cost you everything. You stood up to my father when anyone else would have folded. You showed me what it looks like when someone chooses kindness over convenience. I can't repay that, but I can try to pass it forward. The building you live in is now owned by a trust I established. Your rent will stay fair, your neighbors will be protected. It's not much, but it's something. I'm in Boston now, studying social work. Funny, right? The girl who grew up with everything learning how to help people who have nothing. But you inspired that. You showed me that the most important thing anyone can do is help someone who needs it. My father and I are talking again. Slowly. Carefully. He's trying to understand why I left, why I needed to escape. I think your conversation with him helped. He told me you're the kind of man he wishes he'd been. Coming from him, that's almost a compliment. I hope you and Lily are doing well. I hope the world is being kinder to you. You deserve that. With gratitude, Claire P.S. Tell Lily thank you for saying I have pretty hair. That was the nicest thing anyone had said to me in a long time. Ethan read the letter 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it in the drawer where he kept important documents, Lily's birth certificate, his divorce papers, the few photographs he had from before everything fell apart. He never wrote back. Some things didn't need a response. Some gestures stood on their own. Life settled into something that felt sustainable for the first time in years. Ethan worked his shifts, came home to Lily, helped her with homework at the kitchen table. Mrs. Chen still watched her on work nights, but now Ethan could afford to pay her fairly. Not just $40 a week, but what the service was actually worth. Money was still tight, but it was manageable tight. Predictable tight. The kind of tight where you knew there'd be food next week and the lights would stay on. 3 months after everything ended, Ethan was walking home from the grocery store. Actual grocery store, not just the convenience mart, when he passed a man sitting on the sidewalk. Homeless, probably in his 50s, holding a sign that said, "Anything helps." Ethan stopped, looked at the man, looked at the grocery bags in his hands. He had a little extra this week. Not much, but some. He pulled out his wallet and handed the man a 20. "Thank you," the man said, surprised. "Thank you so much." "Take care of yourself," Ethan said. As he walked away, he felt the weight of what he'd just done. $20 he could have saved, could have put toward Lily's clothes or next month's rent or the car repair he'd been putting off. But he'd given it away because someone needed it, because that's what you did, because the world where everyone only looked out for themselves was exactly the world he'd refused to live in. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan stood in her doorway watching her breathe. She was getting bigger, already outgrowing the bed, her feet touching the footboard now. Soon she'd need a bigger room, a bigger bed, more space to become whoever she was going to become. He thought about the choices that had led to this moment, helping Claire, refusing the money, fighting Ashford. All of it could have gone differently. All of it could have ended in disaster, but it hadn't. It had ended here, in a small apartment that was paid for, with a daughter who was safe and loved, with a life that was modest but honest. Mrs. Chen was right. Truth did come out eventually. Not always in dramatic courtroom moments or public vindication, but in the quiet accumulation of small choices that proved who you really were. Ethan closed Lily's door softly and went to his own room. Tomorrow he'd work another shift, come home tired, do it all again. But that was okay. That was enough. Because in a city where power usually crushed kindness, where money talked louder than truth, where people like him were supposed to stay invisible and grateful for scraps, he'd stood up, he'd fought back, and he'd won. Not because he was special or smart or particularly brave, but because he'd refused to compromise on the things that actually mattered. His daughter was safe. His integrity was intact. And somewhere in Boston, a young woman was studying to help people because she'd learned from a janitor that kindness wasn't weakness. That was a win. That was enough. Ethan turned off the light and settled into bed, the city humming outside his window, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he slept without worry. The bird was free, and so was he.